to today's post-pandemic conversation. I'm Marilyn Anthony, Strategy Professor in the Fox School of Business at Temple University and a member of the Fox Management Consulting Group. We're very fortunate to have Jackie Linton as our guest today. Jackie is a human resources consultant and president of the Philadelphia chapter of SHRM, the Society for Human Resources Managers. It's great to see you, Jackie. And I would like you to start us off by just sharing with our audience some of your professional background.
Sure. Well, first of all, good afternoon, everyone. And it's wonderful to see the names and the faces on the call here. Some I recognize, and for those of you who I don't know, hopefully this won't be the only time we get a chance to meet. As Marilyn said, I'm the president of HR Solutions, which is a boutique HR services company that focuses on talent management, primarily in small to mid-sized companies, as well as nonprofit organizations. We've been in business going on our third year now. It'll be coming up soon. And we're really excited about all the support we've gotten from the community. So,
great. You ready for your first question?
So, yeah.
Okay. So, Jackie, in your career as an HR executive, you've seen companies go through severe crises before. How have the most successful executives led their employees through challenging times?
Yeah. So, before I started my own practice, I spent a number of years in HR, in very senior HR roles in different companies. So I've gotten a chance, unfortunately, to experience a number of different kinds of crises through the years and through the different organizations. And there's really three things that come to my mind that I think are consistent when leaders are trying to manage through a crisis. The first one is around communication. In my experience, when leaders tell the truth, that is probably the first criteria. They need to be clear and they need to be open. So the thing to consider is that employees have their own homes, they have their own, families, and they're managing all of this themselves. I don't think that's me. They're managing all of this themselves, and so they want to know the truth. And if you think you're protecting them from something, you probably aren't doing them a favor. And the bad thing about that is that they won't trust you if they feel like you're not telling them the truth, or you're holding something back, or you don't have their best interests at heart. So being open and clear and giving people the facts, I think, is one of the most important things that a leader can do. Along these same lines of communication, though, you also want to be visionary. It's really easy to describe the problem. Oh my goodness, the crisis is so bad. All these terrible things are happening. But don't get stuck in the current state. You want to be the person that helps your employees see the possibilities of the future. You want to help them to see what it might be like on the other side. You may not know exactly, but just exploring those ideas with them will often bring up new ideas that you hadn't thought about. And another area around communication is when you think you have communicated enough, you need to communicate 10 times more. Because over-communication in times like this is a necessity. You really want to make sure that people are engaged and are involved and really understand the lay of the land for today as well as the future. And people process information differently. So even though you may feel like you've said the same thing over and over, it may not have clicked for everyone at the same time. And so you want to make sure that you are able to communicate in different ways. Some people really want to have the conversation. Some people want to see it in writing. But just make sure that you touch people in lots of different ways. So communication is like one of the first things I think a leader can do to help lead through the crisis. The second thing is getting employees engaged and involved. This isn't the time for you to act like you have all the answers and you know everything, and it's all top down. You really want to have people participate in the solution, because you might be surprised at the kind of things that they will come up with. So you want to help them feel included, help them to solve problems, keep them focusing on not just the current state, but where we're going. So that's one of the reasons why you really want to make sure that you involve them in moving forward. And then finally, and this is probably one of the most important things that you can do as a leader to lead through a crisis, is to keep your emotions in check. People want to be led by someone who they feel like has things under control. So you shouldn't be the one, running around, my hair's on fire, this is so bad. Even if you feel that way, find a quiet corner, release that energy, and then come back with confidence, and talk to people in a way that helps them to feel assured that you know what you're doing. So those three things, effective communication, engagement in problem solving, and keeping your emotions in check. I would say those are the three things I would recommend.
That's great. There's been a lot of talk, obviously, about Andrew Cuomo, and I'd say, he's hitting at least a couple of the things that you talked about there, and you can see how people are responding to that very positively. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I am most impressed about with his briefings is how he brings forth facts. And for me, that's really good, because I feel like I'm a logical person, and I evaluate the quality of what he says based on the facts that he produces. And if it looks to me like, that makes sense. Yeah, he knows what he's talking about. That gives me confidence in what he has to say.
And balancing it also with that human side. You said keep emotions in check, but that whole talk about you can't place a value on my mother's life, he revealed his humanness there as well. So great. Yeah. Thank you.
That's a great example, right?
So obviously, one number that's been very sobering through all of this is we've seen these staggering numbers of people filing for unemployment as a result of the pandemic. Laying off employees is always a painful decision for business leaders. In your experience, is there a best way to manage layoffs?
Yeah. So unfortunately, over the course of my HR career, I've had way too many opportunities to experiment with different ways of managing layoffs. And there are some things I think that work better than others. I mean, it's never going to be a pleasant process. And if you are able to walk through that and not have feelings about it, then you probably need to stop doing that kind of work, because it does require, I think, some level of empathy and compassion for other people to be able to do it well. But with that being said, there are also some techniques that I have found that work best whenever you're having to go through that process. First of all, getting back to communication, being really clear with people about the facts. What I have discovered is that employees generally know where things are headed before you are in a position to tell them. So don't hold back thinking that you have to have all of the facts. Everything has to be completely laid out before you communicate, because by then it'll be too late. In the meantime, people will have made their own decisions. They will have come up with their own conclusions, and it'll be far worse than what the actual situation would be. So it would be my recommendation to keep people involved along the way. And just be clear about the things that you can talk to them about now and the things that are not worked out yet. But be open with them as soon as you have worked out those things, so that they can make their own decisions about what this might mean for their own personal situation. So timely information, accurate information is very important. The other thing is, where possible, provide whatever support you can for those people who might be displaced. And this could be something as simple as, bringing someone in to help them with their resume, or, holding a session on how to conduct an interview, participate in an interview, or giving them access to resources that they may not know existed because they haven't been in this position before. All of those things are really helpful and will be appreciated in the long run because they're things that people wouldn't have thought of on their own. So you can do some things to support people when they are being displaced. But the last area is around the people who are left. There is a thing called survivor syndrome. You may have heard of it, when people who didn't get laid off feel really bad about the people who did get laid off, and then they are resentful of the process that those folks went through because these are their friends, people they worked with for a long time, side by side, and now they don't have a job. And if they feel like the process was without compassion, then they will be resentful of the organization. So you want to, as you are interacting with the people who are leaving, also think about the impact that it has on the people who are staying. You want those folks to look at the process and think, you know what, if it were me, I feel like the organization treated them fairly. They were very open. They really, tried to make the best of this situation. So I have confidence that if it were me, they would treat me the same way. And that's the best that you can hope for coming out of a situation like that, that you want the folks who are left to feel engaged and to feel that you would treat them fairly if you had to do it again. So that survivor syndrome is also something that you want to pay attention to.
Well, that leads us to what we hope will be not that far in the future, that at some point we will emerge from this pandemic. And as businesses prepare for recovery, what advice can you give executives about deciding how to rebuild the human resources of their company? And I'll give you a 3-minute warning on this, and then ask you to respond.
Okay, great. So, one of the things that comes up for me around this is that all of us are going through a very emotional event right now. I don't care what your personal situation is. I think everyone has had some emotional impact here. So when people go back to work, acting like that didn't happen is a mistake. I think acknowledging that this has been an emotional event is really important. And in order for people to be able to turn their minds back to the business, I feel like they need to be acknowledged as a human being that they've experienced this and try to help them move to this new place where they can now focus on the business. So in that regard, I think just asking people how they're doing, what has this experience been like for them? Those are really important questions that really demonstrate your commitment to them as a person. And then also helping people to think about the future. What did they learn during this process? How can that help them going forward? That can be both a business-related question as well as a personal question. So now more than ever, it's important to treat people like human beings and really acknowledge that they bring more to the job than just the skills that you hired them for.
Yeah, that's great. I have one question here that I don't know if this is a short answer, but can you differentiate between individual, team, and organizational resilience?
Yeah. So in my mind, individual resilience is really about the things that impacted me personally. How quickly or effectively am I able to bounce back from those things? Maybe I lost a loved one. Maybe I was sick myself. Maybe I was having financial problems. Those are like personal things. And how quickly am I as an individual able to bounce back? Organizational resilience is really how adept is the team of people that you work with in getting the job done in spite of all these changes. Is it something that they've been able to really be very nimble about and change how they operate, quickly and move forward? Or do people stumble around and really have a lot of trouble figuring out, like, how do I change to adapt to this new situation? And from an enterprise perspective or an organizational perspective, Resilience is really around how do you bounce back when you've been hit in the face with these kinds of things. The pandemic is only one example. I mean, we've had other crises over the course of the years that impact organizations as well. But sometimes it means that you have to reinvent yourself, you have to change your business model, you have to think about how you do work differently. And your ability to really do that well is, in my mind, what I would consider enterprise or organizational resiliency.
That's great. Thank you.